This is a review of the beginning of the book. All right, so in the preface of the 2004 edition, this is not in our edition here, but the other edition, this was actually one of the best quotes that really helped me understand how to deal with life fundamentally. Quote is, if you want to achieve your highest aspirations and overcome your greatest challenges, identify and apply the principle or natural law that governs the results you seek. That, I think, is super profound. So if you're dealing with an issue, like a mechanical issue, you can understand how gravity or force is affecting the process that you're dealing with, right? If my brakes don't work, there's something going on in the car. I understand some mechanism in the vehicle. So in life, if we're having problems with, like, we're talking about climate change and how people govern themselves, right? We can understand human nature and motivation to have a better sense of how to deal with their lack of interest in doing certain things that are going to be best for the environment. So I think that this is important. We can ask ourselves, what is the natural law? And a principle is supposed to be a representation of that law that is governing the thing I'm dealing with, right? So everything that's going on in our lives. Okay, so that in the foreword of our edition, Jim Collins talks about how this book is very much like a user interface, right? That it's a system designed to help us understand how to be effective in our lives and in the world, right? Then he talks about growth is this balance or adding together, preserving the core, having certain principles about yourself or values that are unchanging in some ways. And then we look for certain goals that are way beyond us. And then that will stimulate progress, that we have a certain foundation, and then we can grow far beyond our current state. That's the best, right? He says that personal effectiveness within this book are based on principles for continuous change. That when we utilize these principles, we'll be able to grow as people over and over and over again, basically. The 7 habits are building character through discipline. So he'll say, I'm going to subvert my feelings towards values, right? That if I have a feeling for something, if there's another value that's more important, like the other night, I was going home and I was hungry. And I was like, I go get a burger from this place. And I was like, no, I will go home and eat the food I have in the fridge. And I did that. And I was healthier food at home anyways. And then even though I felt really hungry until I got there, when I ate the healthy food, I felt great. I was like, all right, my feelings changed, right? There are different kinds of feelings. Sometimes we may feel things and it is leading us in a way of growth that's important for us. So we could talk about the ambiguity of feeling in some ways. I went through that in previous lectures. And the principles in this, or the habits, are universal. They apply to everybody. They're timeless. They work for any point in our lives. And they're self-evident, or we could say that they're a priori in some ways. They're just based on the human condition. The self-fulfilling prophecy is, if we wanted to change the situation, this next slide, we first had to change ourselves or our perception. So he communicates how in a specific context, there is what we can be participating in the problem we are faced by the way we look at the situation, right? Now, I'm going to draw a line here. Sometimes the problem is really out there. So he'll quote that the way you see the problem is the problem. That might be true. It might be my paradigm or my map or my perspective on things. But if you're working in a job that's just not good for you and it's making you upset, your feelings are telling you that, and then you have this value, I'm not a quitter, I don't ever quit, and then you stay in a job that's bad for you, I think that there's something going on there that's a problem, right? In the way that philosophy of that mechanism is functioning. So in this example, he was talking about him and his wife, their kid. There's problems with the kid, and they were trying to manage the problems with the kid. But the way they were looking at it, they were being perfectionistic, or they were disparaging the kid in some ways by seeing him as a failure and then treating him like that. So it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then he can contrast the personality versus the character ethic. So the way that he defines this, the personality ethic is like looking at quick fixes. Like someone comes to me and says, like, you know, I want to just have the hack to life to just make things easy for myself. He says that's never going to lead you to success. Even though you might have a temporary solution right now, it's not going to be long lasting. right? We need to look at our habits, the way we look at the world, and our attitudes. And then over time, your character will develop when you practice, as Aristotle would say, virtue ethics, or you want to develop practical wisdom, how we apply certain virtues in specific situations, how to be courageous, for example, or how to develop wisdom, right? And then he says that our paradigms are maps of either reality, how things really are, or values, how they ought to be, or how we think, how we want them to be. And he gives the example of young and old woman to see how you can look at things in different ways. It's like a thought experiment in, sorry, I'll show you this picture. It's a thought experiment in perception, or different perceptions. So it's like this image. Do you see a young or an old woman? See a young woman? What do you see?
Same.
Same? Maybe it's because I said young first.
Oh, I see the old one now.
There you go. That's a paradigm shift, is that experience, the eureka moment. You want to see the old?
Where's the eyes?
So that's the eye, this is the nose, that's the mouth, and this is the chin,
Oh, yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's a good photo.
Yeah,
Good
so
picture.
that's the paradigm shift. That's how he gives an immediate example. And he says that when we talk about how to grow as a person, behavior and attitudes are like symptoms of a larger problem. The larger problem is how we see things, because our behaviors and attitudes will flow based on how we see the world. So paradigm shifts. This is 28 of this edition of the book. Congruence with paradigms, behavior, and attitudes. To change outward attitudes and behaviors does very little good in the long run if we fail to examine the basic paradigms from which those attitudes and behaviors flow. Right? So the way that you're acting or how you feel is based on what you perceive. So if we can deal with how we perceive things first, maybe the job does suck, and it's important for you to know that and accept it and then move on, right? Maybe that's what's going on, right? In contrast to saying, I am the problem because I feel that this job sucks. Maybe that's true, but it could just be that you're accurately feeling what's going on and you need to make a decision now. Or the belief could be there's no other jobs out there. That could be a paradigm. I'm stuck here because there's no other work. And that's not true, right? There is a place for you to spend your time. Making money is one thing, but what are you doing, right? Paradigm shift.
I could comment on that when I was telling my manager that I was going to quit. And then the first thing he said was, I thought was interesting. It was like, our company provides awesome mental health support if you need a therapist. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never thought it's a me problem. Just the thing of the job itself. I don't think having a therapist and tell me what I'm feeling is invalid is going to resolve it.
That's good. It's good. That's human resources, like keeping people in shitty jobs.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so paradigm shift comes from Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, which is the book he wrote. And he says that every scientific breakthrough was first a break in cultural tradition or old ways of thinking, right? So he gives this concept of seeing and being, the seeing being change. It says that paradigms are inseparable from character. What we see is highly interrelated to what we are. We can't go very far to change our seeing, the way we see things, without simultaneously changing our being. There's a typo there. And then paradigms are the lens in which we see the world. So the reason that he goes through paradigms is because he's going to give you a bunch of, at least at the time this was written, a bunch of things that you might not know, or you have your own perspective. And so he wants to set you up to have this perspective changing mechanism. How can I prepare you to change the way you see things? Let's talk about this process of change first, right? And that's why this chapter is called Inside Out, because the origins of change need to come from within. And the most inner part of what we are, according to Stephen Covey, is how you see things, your perspective. So principle-centered. Principles are natural laws or the territory. So there are like the law of gravity. There is a force in the cosmos within space-time, right? And that force of gravity, we can have some representation of that force, and that would be like a principle. right? That's kind of what he's saying. Paradigms are maps. So to live in harmony with the principles will lead you to stability and not destruction. So if you are like a dishonest person and you are disrespectful to people, right? Then your life will become more destructive. If you only do based on impulse and you don't think about things and, you know, and still don't say that you can't have like some sense of feeling and being in the moment, your life won't, like, you're not going to have a good life, you know? Patience is important too sometimes. There's different things. And so he talks about virtues. And then he says, if we value principles, have a principle map of the principle territory, we have truth. And then he talks about this thing where he references embryonic stages of growth. So he says that there's private victories and public victories. First, we have to take care of ourselves, and then we can have social engagement. But you have to take care of yourself first. Start with the self. The most inside part are paradigms, character, and motives. The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. He's quoting or paraphrasing Einstein. So the next part is the overview section. He talks about habits. So this is an interpretation of Aristotle. It's not an actual quote from Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And so that's kind of referencing this practical wisdom notion from the Nicomachean Ethics, which is Aristotle, right? And it's to practice these virtues, and over time, you will develop practical wisdom, how to be virtuous and have a sense of knowing what that means. So I'm calling this intentional habits, not just habits in general. And he says that habits, or intentional habits, are a combination of knowledge, what we're doing, skill, how to do it, and then desire, which is the motivation to do it. And then he goes on the being, seeing, change again. Working with our knowledge, skill, and desire, one can break old paradigms. He references the maturity continuum, which goes back to the embryonic stages of growth, where we start from a place of dependence, we grow to a position of independence, and then we can grow to a position of interdependence, where we can work together. And from dependence to interdependence is habits 1 through 3, which are the private victories. So the first habit is being proactive. That's something you do for yourself. The second one is begin with the end in mind, knowing what your values and goals are, and then leading yourself. All your decisions are accumulating towards those goals. And then the last one is put first things first, which is developing a sense of priority, and then scheduling your time based on what your priorities and your goals are and your values. And he says that private victories precede public victories. So you have to do those first to be effective within groups and stuff. So this is the last for at least the summary up to the chapter of Be Proactive. So the overview is about effectiveness now. Based on principles that bring maximum long-term beneficial results, effectively solve problems, maximize opportunities, and continue to learn and integrate other principles within. Like, what does he mean by effectiveness in this context, basically? So there's something he calls production capability. And he gives us an example of, so production is the desired results you have from whatever it is. The production capability, so they want you to work. They're like, we need you to do this. This is what we want you to produce. Production capability is the ability or of the asset to produce, right? So the production capability, if you're going to quit your job, you're not capable of producing anything anymore. You're done. You're like, I'm exhausted. I can't do this, right? And so he says effectiveness is a balance between production and production capability. So he gives the example of the goose and the golden egg. The farmer comes in to get some eggs from his chickens and stuff like that. He has a goose in this context. And he looks and there's a golden egg there. He's like, whoa. Comes back the next day, another golden egg. Every day there's a golden egg. And then the farmer gets greedy. He's like, I'm going to kill the goose and take all the golden eggs out. Which in some ways doesn't really make sense, because if you've gotten 7 golden eggs, that's more volume than the goose probably, or whatever. You know what I mean? So how many eggs are you going to get out of the thing to kill it? Anyways, this farmer's not the smartest guy. So kills the goose. Goose is dead. No more golden eggs. The farmer killed the thing that was producing the golden eggs, right? And so he gives other examples about like maintaining your lawnmower, or like a relationship. You want to like have fun time. And then if you have any stress, that'll reduce the, or if you have a request of somebody, right? You want to put an investment into the relationship so that you can extract stuff out of it, whatever that might be. And then organization's the same thing. He talks about this clam chowder case where this restaurant had really good clam chowder in the book, and someone bought it And then the new owner started to water down the clam chowder, and then the customers just left. They're like, you know, we're not going to put up with this anymore.
There's a certain interesting threshold there.
Yeah. So that's up to habit 1. I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. Okay, we're at like 9:47. So I kind of wanted to just do a little review. Those are the main points for the first, 74 pages or so, 70 pages. Those are the main things that you're going to get out of it. So I don't know. I think that was good for today. We had a little bit of a tangent talk, which is totally fine. That's good to do that. I like doing that. I think it's important. That way, everyone feels that they're whatever you need for yourself in your life. The Philosophy Society, we want to kind of make sense of that and find a way to deal with it, right? And we do it together because then we all learn, and then it makes us a stronger group, right? So I think that for what you're communicating, there's some research and this is a project. You can do that. You can do that for 30 years, 40 years, one time. Just like I have this project and I've been working on this. You can determine technologies and you can just spend your time doing that. And that's a good thing. It's meaningful. Everyone needs to find meaning in life. And the evidence shows by devoting yourself to something that's beyond you, that connects significantly to humanity. And so that's an example of one of those things that you could do. Because all the time you put in there is not wasted.
Sometimes when you find some condition and you work with it, it's like you got 1 year or 2 years to spend time with your work. So you're just looking to another step. You need some growing up criteria, something else, So you just spend 2 years with just like a little experience. So you need to find another experience out of your business. It's got to take a long time. You need to take another 1 year, maybe, or 2 years to build the experience with another way.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, if I got the good position, like for the work or something to do, then I'm quiet. Well, it's finished for me. But your advice to open my mind to look into another position to build with it.
I think you need to understand yourself first.
That's first, yeah.
Right? Like what's going to make you happy? That goes for multiple people at the table. Like, who are you? And what do you want to spend your time doing? Right? Some things might be enjoyable intrinsically, like being a gardener. Like I always think like I could just go work for the botanical garden and it would be great. Even if I'm just shoveling or like doing stuff with manure, I wouldn't care because I'm like it would be a very peaceful job. In contrast to being a bartender, you're spilling alcohol on yourself and dealing with drunk people, And so like there's the activity itself and how much you can derive from the physical activity. And then there's the people that you're with. You could be doing a mundane task, but the people you're with give you a sense of inclusion and you feel a sense of like solidarity with them, right? Like working with people. And so I think that's one thing, and that's going to be like occupation specific, and then the specific job place, like where you're at, will have different kinds of people. In some groups, you may fit in more conducively than other places, right? So that's one thing. But the other thing is like, who are you and what do you want to devote yourself to? So if you like business, you can study entrepreneurship, understand it to increase your success, and then focus on doing businesses, right? And then we go back to, again, what kind of business do you want to do, right? There's profit, and then there's like what you're interested in. And so I think it depends on, who you are fundamentally. And that's like a personal conversation. We can talk about that. Like I like singing. I'm a vocalist. So I'm always practicing singing to make sure my skills at a certain level. And if I had the opportunity to go on tour, I would do it. I would just like manage my life and do it. And then at least do this virtually. Right. And And if I made a bunch of money at that, then boom, there's money there, whatever. But like for me to be an Uber driver, I'm like, nah, I just don't care. I'm not going to do it. Like there's money in it, but I just don't care enough to.
There's no experience also.
It's an experience, but there's lots of experiences out there.
With Uber.
Just in general.
Generally.
I just don't want to be in traffic all day with someone who's upset that
Yeah,
we're in
that's my
traffic.
experience in the drive. I got 2,000 deal today, trip with the Uber.
Oh, yeah.
So I just finished tomorrow, the last day for me.
If you
So-
have, yeah.
Yeah.
Part of it is going to be like your options too. Like if you need money and you have to make money, like what can you do?
It's a part time. That's it. It's not like
Whatever.
basic something.
Like I found a way to become a carpenter, you know, and I learned to do renovations and build houses and stuff. And I prefer that than like even bartending. Bartending, it's like you do it to be social, maybe to meet people and stuff.
Have you done it?
And but it's not that good. It's low pay and it's like you're begging for tips in some ways. That's uncomfortable. It's just not conducive to my personality, you know? So, and then there's like immediate gains, like immediate income, and there's like long-term goals on how to acquire income. I think that everybody, I may have talked about this before in one of the things. And there's like a philosophy of business and capitalism talk I did last year in the title. You guys can find it. And I think everyone wants to invest time in a long-term, highly identifiable way to make money, right? And then do an immediate thing like the gardening, something that just won't make you upset during the day. It really stresses you out. Is it worth the money? Or if you're really violating your values or something like that, you know, like I know people that were involved in like prostitution, and I'm like, I guess so. That's really what you want to do, you know? But then it caused them a whole bunch of other problems. So not that I was paying for the prostitute, they were like a friend. You know what I mean? I've never actually done that. I disagree with that. I think porno's okay, but prostitution, I don't agree with. Why? Because it's not teaching you the skills to interact with what you're attracted to.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's better for you to fail 5 times, spending the same amount of money and learn how to, I'm interested in women, how to attract women. But when you pay for sex, you don't actually learn what a real interaction is like. You need to deal with some rejection. You know, like in this culture, you go to the bar, you can ask a girl if I can buy you a drink, if that's what you want to do. You don't have to be an alcoholic, but you can do that.
You need to be active with it. It's like being active.
Yeah.
Or so you get a false interaction.
With the paying for sex, it's always false. It's not real.
Yeah, so you actually lose.
Yeah. And I know some guys that, you know, they're like, oh, I don't have a girlfriend. I don't know how to do it. But then they'll once a month, like they just can't take it. And then they just go and like go to a rub and tug or something like that, or they get a prostitute.
Lucky moment. You know, that's
I don't think so. I think it's an illusion. You
They
know?
know they're not getting the real thing, but that's what they would believe. It's not perfect, but it's not nothing. It's something that
I guess, but if over
at least you're
time,
getting something
well, but it's immediate gratification.
better than nothing.
I don't know.
It's bad for the woman, but I feel like as someone who's buying it, I don't know, you're getting something out of it.
Some women like it, and that's fine for them.
Yeah.
Like they're highly promiscuous and they might as well just make money at it. If it's safe and they can choose their clients, like that's fine if you want to do that. But I've just have observed some men that have no skills at interacting with women. And when they wait long enough, they like lose willpower and then they just engage in paying for sex. And if they just like $150, like you could literally like, how many drinks is that? That's like 15 drinks. You could go on to buy a different girl. Like you couldn't do that, man. You couldn't buy that many drinks for a girl in one night. That'd be really hard, actually. Because at least you could talk with her for a few minutes. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting perspective.
Right?
Economic perspective.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, and you would think that you would start to learn something after the 7th failure. Like I just spent $70, you know?
I feel like it just depends on when you come. Some people get more rejections than others.
And that's okay. And the rejection is to teach you her instincts. All the grandmothers of grandmothers, all of her ancestors are speaking to her through her emotions. She's like, oh no, or whatever it is, right? And she's like, I can't be with this man, you know? And the women, like as a man, you need to learn which women are using you for the drink very early, right? I never buy girls drinks. I don't even do that.
right.
Just because some women or men, whoever that is, but in my case it's women, they would be just using me for the drink, right? I'm like, I'm not going to spend money on you. I don't even know who you are. That's craziness, right? But at the very least, I think that's better buying 15 drinks or even 7 if they're expensive drinks than going to somebody where it's completely artificial. Because some girls will just tell you no right off the bat. They're like, no, I will not allow you to buy me a drink. Right? And you need to reflect. You'd be like, why? You know? And one way is to like, is the person even looking at you? Do you just like walk up to someone that you're attracted to, but they don't even know you exist? That could be the first lesson. Maybe there's some women or whoever you're into that if they're demonstrating signals of attraction from a distance, that is an indication to get a little bit closer, right? Because it's nature. Like nature is literally on your side to procreate, right? That's what sex and attraction, all those feelings are for.
But also prostitution is one of the oldest form of work. So
I
don't know.
understand.
I'm not for it, but I just feel like some people just don't get anything. So if they have money, they might as well for something. But, it's not ideal.
It's okay. Like I guess so, but like it's, I don't know, man. Like I think if you have to at least do a 1-for-1 ratio then. If you spend $150 on a prostitute, you should probably spend at least $150 trying to meet somebody.
Let's make connection.
To have an authentic connection, you know, like at the least. I'm maybe hard on myself. I don't do it at all, you know. I do watch porno. I'll admit to that. I think it's great. I think it's beautiful art. Some of it's bad, but I'm not that hard on the porno. Addiction is one thing. I know some people criticize pornography for addiction, but I think that sex is a beautiful thing, and it can be a beautiful, you know, whatever. Right? I think there's obviously pornography comes from a situation where like we as a species would watch other people have sex, you know, and then we just got cameras and we're like, hey, we can like preserve this as a thing. Some people don't like it, and there's maybe religious reasons for not liking it, but I think it's not as bad as prostitution. And yeah.
I would say with prostitution, my stance is that you get less from the interaction and the energy you put in.
For prostitute.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
For pornography, it's free and it's online, so you're exposed to it no matter what,
Yeah, it's true.
especially with those pop-up ads.
Yeah, well, yeah. There are dark holes in the online pornography thing, like paying for it, or like, you know, pornography that's just immoral and illegal. It's not acceptable either, right? So
Try to download a movie and you get
yeah, that's happened to people I know. So I don't know. I just think that like instead of going to the prostitute, you could just watch a little bit of porno if you need to, you know.
That is more artificial than positive. At least the positive is a person.
But I know, but at least there's no interaction.
There is. Like
Really?
there was one woman. She's actually really popular in Toronto. She's an escort, and she graduated from U of T. So I was in a philosophy of sexuality lecture, and then they invited her to give a talk. And then she was saying that for most of her clients, she only spent like, and so each session is 1 hour, and then she gets paid a lot, like a few $100s. And then she said they at most spend like 10 minutes having sex, and then the rest of the 15 minutes she talks with them. She's their therapist.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah.
Like a report,
Like a what?
like
Report? Yeah.
And then she said a lot of people comes to her just to have some company and then
Intimacy.
talk to her. And then what they like about that is that when they are talking to an actual therapist, they feel this social pressure because it's a professional setting. Or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when they go to a prostitute, they know that the prostitute is not going to judge them because the prostitutes are
That's
already
interesting.
in that industry, right?
Yeah.
So they feel more like comfortable enough to share their darkest secret with the prostitute.
You
That's
guys don't
interesting.
think that the whole situation, the thing is kind of childish?
Which part?
The whole thing?
Like sex in general? Or
No, not
prostitution?
sex, prostitution.
Why is it childish?
Well, you're paying for an interaction, so it's, first of all, that's you would get a false interaction, right? So, and you never assess the other person's emotional state or behavior for your intended interaction. I mean, I consider it to be childish
I don't know about childish, but I would say it's
or immature.
immature, sure. Some of it can be like what you're identifying, I think, is a little bit more authentic than if it's only sex.
Oh yeah, that's escort. That's higher level
Okay,
prostitution.
all right, okay, I don't know, all right.
But I don't know about. I've never met any like not escort kind of prostitute, so I don't know how their life is like. Probably much worse. But the woman I heard she's like very high and she charges like $800 an hour or something.
Sure.
Less than
I'm interested in who pays for that. What kind of
rich
person
old
pays for that?
men.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
But she's also like a feminist writer. She wrote this book called the Modern
It's
Core.
an
It's a
interesting-
feminist book. She's popular.
Interesting
I see
demographic.
her in documentaries all the time.
Okay, and she's, yeah, that's interesting.
And she also grew up in a very religious family. I think she went to U of T for like literature and philosophy or something, or religious studies.
People that I never run into.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I'm more criticizing, like, in my experience, men that desire like an authentic relationship, but then don't actually interact with women that would like them. And then they just prolong this, like they never learn the skill. You know? So, and I think what you're saying is like, it's almost like sexual healing. It's like there's sex and then it's like, you know, like there's something there, but it's just that person, I don't know, like, how do we evaluate the quality of that relationship? If it is providing benefits for the individual, you know what I mean? Like if they have sex for 10 minutes and they talk for 50 minutes, like that is an example.
Well, what's your personality type, by the way? ENFP?
I don't use the Myers-Briggs.
Oh.
I use like the 5-factor model. I'm highly neurotic, which sucks for me. My openness,
Big Five.
yeah,
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
my openness to experience is probably like, depending on some content, but maybe like a 4. My conscientiousness is pretty high, like a 7. And then my agreeableness is, I would say I'm at least in the middle, but I'm kind of disagreeable. So maybe I'm more of a 6 for disagreeable, like towards
I
that.
can tell by your face that you're ENFP, or it looks like that.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't know. You can tell by your face. I don't know what that means. Like my emotional expressions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the face itself, like how you express your emotions.
Okay, that's cool. Whatever.
Oh, it's a good personality type.
There's just low internal validity with it. When you retake the test, you'll get a different, it'll be the same
Oh, really? I thought it doesn't really change.
for the Myers-Briggs.
Oh no, the Big Five.
Big 5 is good.
What's me big 5? I do.
I don't know.
No?
So the Big 5 is a factor analysis model of personality, and there's 5 predominant traits that everybody shares. And so you can use the acronym OCEAN. So O is for openness to experience, C is for conscientiousness, E is for extroversion, introversion. I'm a little extroverted. I'm kind of in the both. I learn both. Ambivert, or whatever it's called. A is for agreeableness, and then N is for neuroticism. Being neurotic sucks. Things just piss me off. I'm like, oh my God, I need to like deal with my life better.
I'm very low, very, very, very low on conscientiousness.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that.
Yeah, no.
Your hair is so well done, and
Oh, it's just because of genetics. But I actually don't do anything.
you're the one that put the bobby pins in your hair.
Oh,
You were not born with those. I'm sorry.
no, but I am, and I feel like growing up, I always felt self-conscious about that because of how disorganized I am. But now
Okay.
I know it's not me. It's just it's not that I'm not trying hard. I did try. I just I'm distracted.
Well, mindfulness will help. You can meditate every day to be aware of things. The motivation to like be orderly is a little bit different, you know?
There's a way to improve conscientiousness.
If you're mindful, like the first step is being aware that this is not organized.
Meditation helps.
Mindfulness meditation.
Yeah.
There's some videos on the website I have. If you go to the website, you know the website? And you go to the counseling tab, and there's mindfulness and meditation. I have this, they're just links. So I have the Sam Harris meditation video. And then there's Wim Hof. I have an example of him. You know Wim Hof? You'd like that. You'd like that a lot.
I just put on some meditation music on YouTube and just
That's good.
no just silence.
Yeah, yeah.
Try to perceive like the surroundings, whatever noises you hear. Yeah, do that for like 5 minutes. Slowly open your eyes, and you feel like you're more awake than normal.
That's good, bro. That's perfect, man. We're supposed to be, I used to meditate with the Philosophy Society before. We can start doing it again, even for like a minute or two. So there's 2 Sam Harris ones. There's a Wim Hof one. He uses like this breathing technique to like boost his immune system and then kills this like virus or something like that. They had him like in a hospital and they were like measuring it. They had the antidote and they're like, the only way for you to get cured is with the antidote. And he did it himself. Super interesting. He like climbed Mount Everest in underpants and ran 20 kilometers in the Sahara Desert by using his breathing technique because it changes the pH level in his blood.
I think I've seen that on YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a link to one of his videos there.
So just
Or
practice
so they say.
a little bit a day. And just your body,
The Wim Hof or the mindfulness?
the breathing.
The Wim Hof stuff is, yeah, you can like watch the video, but it's like you're really intaking a lot of oxygen. So it's like, and then it's like a thing. And the increase of oxygen changes he says changes the pH of your blood. And then he does like conditioning techniques where he like goes into like freezing cold ice and stuff like that.
Oh, that's good. That's engaging.
Yeah, it's a thing. And so then there's the Wim Hof one, and then there's the Herbert Benson relaxation response. And that one, he says, it's like a stress reducing mechanism. You do that twice a day, 10 minutes a day.
There's location here in Ontario
For what?
for this one. It's like we got called.
Yeah. Just it's called like just look it up online. Like Polar Dip or something like that. Natalia knows. The administrative assistant for this, she does it. She can go with you.
I will.
You'll meet her maybe next week.
Yeah.
She's here.
It's good. Good idea.
Okay, I think that's good for this week. I'm gonna have to do stuff. So maybe next week we'll see you. Next week we'll continue with habit 1. All right, we'll see you guys next week.